Her resume was impeccable. Every achievement, every degree, every milestone a clear testament to her qualifications. Yet as she sat across from the hiring manager, a sinking feeling settled in her stomach. The questions were pointed, probing, subtly dismissive. Was it because she was a woman, or was it just the way the world worked? The irony? Her husband, a man who had just secretly acquired the company she was interviewing with, was watching the entire process from a hidden room, unseen and unknown to her. And when the day came for the truth to emerge, it would shatter everything. It would be a reckoning of the company's culture, the biases entrenched in its very foundation. The doors of the conference room opened, and Amanda Jensen, dressed in a sharp black suit, walked in with the kind of confidence one would expect from someone who had been at the top of her game for over a decade. Her heels clicked firmly on the floor, the sound of determination echoing with each step. "Please take a seat," the hiring manager said, motioning to the chair across from him. He was a man in his mid-40s, with an air of arrogance that was all too familiar. "I've been reviewing your qualifications, Ms. Jensen. You're certainly impressive. But tell me, why this company? Why now?" Amanda's heart skipped a beat. The question wasn't meant to be open-ended or curious, it felt more like a trap. "I believe this company offers a unique opportunity for growth. Your recent projects align with my experience in product development, and I'm passionate about the direction you're headed." The manager barely acknowledged her words. Instead, he scrutinized her with a gaze that felt more evaluative than appreciative. "That's nice, but can you handle the pressure here? It's a tough environment. We have high expectations." Amanda bristled but kept her cool. "I've been managing high-stakes projects for over 5 years. Pressure is something I'm used to." There was a pause. The hiring manager's lips curled into a tight smile. "And what about your personal life? How do you manage family and work-life balance?" The question was bizarrely personal, almost inappropriate, yet Amanda kept her response steady. "I believe in efficiency and prioritization. My family supports my career, and I make it work." The interview carried on with subtle barbs tossed her way, questions about her commitment, her ability to handle leadership, and whether her marriage might be a distraction. It was as if they didn't see her as a qualified candidate. They saw her as an anomaly, something that didn't quite fit the mold they had in mind. But Amanda was determined. She knew her worth, and despite the slight flicker of doubt that gnawed at her, she pushed on. She answered every question with poise, though each felt more like a hurdle than a conversation. Halfway through the interview, a soft knock came at the door. "Excuse me, Mr. Harper," a secretary said, poking her head inside. "There's an urgent call for you." "Not now," Harper snapped, barely glancing up. "I'm in the middle of an interview." The secretary hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "It's from the owner. He said it's very important." Amanda's brow furrowed, but she said nothing. Harper sighed and stood, walking to the door. He spoke briefly, his voice lowering as if in quiet disdain. Then he returned to his seat, dismissing the matter with a wave. "Where were we?" The interruption felt jarring, but Amanda pressed on, determined to remain calm. What Amanda didn't know, as she sat there answering questions with unwavering focus, was that her husband, Victor Jensen, was watching the entire thing unfold. Hidden behind a one-way mirror in a private room just down the hall, he could hear every word, every subtle inflection in Harper's voice. Victor had recently acquired the company, using his wealth and influence to execute a silent takeover. The plan was simple: buy it from under their noses and make it better, from the top down. He didn't plan on telling Amanda, not yet. Anyway, he wanted to see how they treated her, a highly qualified woman, a leader in her own right. And what he saw disgusted him. He couldn't believe how subtly they undermined her. It wasn't just the condescending tone of the interviewer. It was the constant doubt, the lack of real interest in her skills, the way they disregarded her potential because of her gender. It was as if they had already made up their minds she was not fit, not qualified enough, not capable. She was a woman, and that was enough to label her as unworthy of a position at the top. Victor clenched his fists, fury rising in his chest. He had known corporate culture was toxic, but this was something else entirely. As the interview finally came to an end, Amanda stood, extending her hand to Harper. "I appreciate your time today, Mr. Harper," she said, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her. Harper, ever the condescending man, barely acknowledged her gesture, instead offering a half smile and a curt nod. "We'll be in touch." Amanda left the room, her heart pounding in her chest. She had no idea what had just happened, but something felt off. Something about the way they treated her, the way they questioned her, it didn't sit right. But as she stepped into the hallway, she was met by a surprising-faced Victor. "Amanda," he said, his voice soft but filled with an intensity that caught her off guard. "We need to talk." In the privacy of a conference room, Victor stood by the window, his back to her. Amanda frowned, crossing her arms. "What's going on? You said you'd be in a meeting this afternoon." He turned to face her, his expression a mixture of anger and resolve. "I'm not just the new CEO of this company, Amanda. I'm the one who just bought it." Her breath caught in her throat. "What? You?" Victor nodded, his eyes filled with regret. "I've been watching the entire interview, Amanda, and what I saw, it was beyond wrong. They treated you like you didn't belong here, like you weren't qualified. And that's not just a problem with them, it's a problem with this company, with the culture that exists here." Amanda's world tilted, and for the first time, the full weight of what had just happened began to settle on her shoulders. "You've been here this whole time?" she asked, her voice shaking. Victor nodded, walking toward her. "I couldn't just stand by and let this happen. Not to you, not to anyone. I've been a part of this corporate world for too long. And it's time for a change." Amanda's mind was racing. "So what now?" Victor's eyes hardened. Now I make sure they understand exactly what kind of company we're going to run. No more subtle bias. No more discrimination. This ends today." Victor called an all-hands meeting with the company's leadership team the following morning. Amanda watched as he addressed them with quiet authority, making it clear that everything they had done, everything they had allowed, would no longer be tolerated. The time for change was now. But even as he spoke, Amanda's mind kept returning to the interview. The subtle but deep-rooted bias. The way she had been made to feel like an outsider, despite her accomplishments. Despite everything. The meeting ended in stunned silence, but as the executives filed out, Victor turned to Amanda. "I'll be with you every step of the way," he said, his voice low. "But you need to be ready for a fight. This won't be easy." She nodded, but doubt still lingered. Could one man's decision really change the ingrained culture of a company? Or was the battle just beginning? As Amanda walked out of the room, she passed by Harper's office, where the door was slightly ajar. She could hear him on the phone, his voice raised. "I don't care who owns this company now," he snapped. "This is still my territory, and I'm not going down without a fight." Amanda stopped, her breath caught in her throat. Was he planning something? Was this truly over? Or had she just walked into an even more dangerous game? The stakes had just been raised, and the reckoning was far from over. Amanda's fingers trembled slightly as she stood in front of Harper's office door. She could hear him clearly now, his voice raised in a sharp, panicked tone. The words spilled out of his mouth, but she could only catch fragments. Something about territory. Something about fighting back. Her heart pounded in her chest. Was he plotting something? Was the battle truly over? Or had she just stepped into something darker? Victor had warned her it won't be easy. But could he have known just how deep the corruption ran? The words echoed in her mind. No more subtle bias. But what if that was only the surface? She stepped back, her mind racing. She had to act fast. The stakes had just escalated. Over the next few days, Amanda's every move felt like it was being watched. She had always known that corporate environments were difficult for women, especially women of her caliber. But what she hadn't known was just how deeply entrenched the bias was in this particular company. Every interaction with her colleagues felt laced with skepticism. Her accomplishments were dismissed as luck, her leadership questioned as merely temporary. It wasn't just the hiring manager, Harper, it was the entire corporate culture. In the days following Victor's announcement, whispers filled the hallways. And with every whisper, Amanda felt her resolve strengthen. But the challenge was deeper than she'd expected. Victor had made an enemy of Harper, that much was clear. But Harper wasn't the only one she had to worry about. Her footsteps echoed in the hallway as she made her way to her office. She could see the shadows of the higher-ups looming, people who had been complicit in maintaining the toxic environment, people who had quietly supported Harper's methods. They were part of the institutional bias that made success feel impossible for someone like Amanda. Amanda wasn't naive. She knew what it meant to fight back. She wasn't the first to face prejudice. But she refused to be the last to lose. 2 weeks after Victor's takeover, the tension reached a boiling point. Amanda sat at her desk, staring at the email in front of her. It was a report that could change everything. The data was solid, undeniable proof of systemic bias in the company's hiring practices. Gender bias, racial bias, and class bias had been at the core of the company's success. And now she had the evidence. But she wasn't blind. She knew that exposing this would come with a cost. Her phone buzzed. "Victor, I know what you're thinking," he said when she picked up. "Don't do anything rash." "Rash?" Amanda replied, her voice tight with frustration. "I have proof, Victor. This is what they've been hiding. If I expose it, we can change everything." There was a long pause on the other end. "I know. But there's more. I've been looking deeper into this company. Harper isn't the only one pulling strings. There's a whole network of people who benefit from this system. And they won't give up their power without a fight." Amanda clenched her fists. "I'm ready for that fight." Victor's voice softened. "I know you are. But remember, we can't just fight for you. We need to fight for everyone. We have to build a movement. Exposing them isn't enough. We need to tear down the entire system." Amanda took a deep breath. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for every woman, every person who had been silenced, dismissed, and ignored for far too long. And this was the beginning. The next day, Amanda walked into her office to find a note on her desk. It was from someone in human resources. Her fingers ran over the paper. "We need to talk." The message was simple, but Amanda's mind raced. Was this an attempt to intimidate her? Was it a trap set by Harper's allies? Or was it someone who had seen the truth trying to help? She made her decision. She wasn't going to back down. The woman waiting for Amanda in the HR office was someone she barely recognized, a quiet, unassuming staff member. Someone who had always been in the background, invisible to most of the company's leadership. Her name was Beth. "I've been watching you, Amanda," Beth said quietly, her voice almost a whisper. "And I know what you're doing. I've been keeping tabs on the company for years. The same system that holds you back has held me back, too. But I never had the courage to speak up." Amanda leaned forward, her heart racing. "What do you know?" Beth hesitated. Then, she slid a folder across the desk. Inside were documents, names, emails, and transactions, all pointing to something far darker than Amanda had imagined. It wasn't just bias. It was a cultivation of prejudice, an active, strategic effort to exclude and silence the voices of women, minorities, and anyone else who didn't fit the profile of the ideal employee. "This company has a long history of systematic oppression," Beth continued, her voice trembling. "They've been covering it up for years. The higher-ups have made sure that no one can rise above a certain point. And anyone who tries, well, you saw what happened to you." Amanda felt a chill run down her spine. "How long has this been going on?" Beth sighed. "Since the beginning. But now, with Victor in charge, things are changing. We have a chance. But only if we act fast." Amanda's mind was reeling as she walked into the conference room for her meeting with the company's executives. The documents Beth had given her were her weapon now. She had proof. She had allies. And today she was going to make them listen. Victor had arranged the meeting, and as Amanda entered the room, she felt the eyes of the executives on her. Harper was there, his face a mask of quiet fury. She could sense the tension in the air, like a storm about to break. She didn't waste time. She stood tall, her voice steady. I have evidence that this company has been systematically discriminating against its employees for years. It's not just a few isolated incidents. It's the very culture of this company. The room fell silent. Harper opened his mouth, but Amanda was quick to cut him off. And I have a choice to make. I can walk away, or I can expose you. I can show the world the truth about what this company has done. And I will, unless you make things right. Today. Harper's face reddened. You think you can destroy everything we've built with your accusations? Amanda didn't flinch. No, you've already done that. But now, I'm going to build something better. The battle was far from over. As the days passed, Amanda found herself in a game of chess, where every move she made was countered by those who had been entrenched in the system for decades. There were whispers of sabotage, her emails going missing, her meetings being cancelled, her progress being blocked at every turn. But Amanda wasn't deterred. She had a plan, and she was going to see it through. With Beth's help, Amanda had started reaching out to other employees who had been affected by the company's toxic culture. She found allies in the most unexpected places, people who had been too afraid to speak up before, people who had been silenced for far too long. Together, they were beginning to build a movement, one that couldn't be ignored. The word was spreading, and the pressure was mounting. But just as Amanda thought she was gaining ground, an unexpected turn of events hit. The company's board members, those who had remained silent, watching from the sidelines, made their move. They called for a vote on Victor's leadership, citing irregularities in the takeover process. It was all a setup. They had known what was coming, and they were going to fight back. Amanda's stomach dropped. Was this the end of the fight, or just the beginning? As the board members filed into the room, Amanda knew one thing for certain. The stakes had just been raised. The battle for the company's soul was far from over. Amanda's pulse hammered in her ears as she stood before the boardroom doors. The meeting was scheduled for an hour, but it felt like an eternity. She had just learned that the company's board of directors was preparing to vote on Victor's leadership. The tension in the room was palpable, and her heart ached with the knowledge that everything she had fought for was on the line. She had seen this moment coming. The whispers, the looks, the attempts to silence her, it was all leading to this showdown. The door creaked open. A series of hard chairs greeted her as she stepped inside, the eyes of the board members falling on her like vultures. Harper was there, sitting smugly at the head of the table, flanked by a few other powerful figures. They had been waiting for this opportunity to regain control. They had been waiting for her to fail. Victor was absent. The sense of unease in Amanda's gut grew. She stood at the entrance for a moment, taking a deep breath. She had to go in, had to face them. There was no turning back now. The room went quiet as the door clicked shut behind her. All eyes were on her. Amanda Jensen, the head of the board, began, his voice cold and dismissive. It's good to finally meet you, but we are gathered here today to discuss some very serious concerns about the future of this company. Amanda's hands clenched at her sides. She couldn't let them win. Not now. Not after everything. Victor Jensen's acquisition of this company was, frankly, irregular. His actions over the past few weeks have raised questions that we cannot ignore. The chairman's voice dripped with authority as he continued, each word meant to undermine Victor's legitimacy and authority. We believe there are elements of this transition that could be considered unethical. It is time for us to take action to restore the company to its rightful leadership. Amanda's heart sank as she realized what was happening. This wasn't just about Victor's leadership. This was about silencing her and anyone who dared challenge the existing order. But Amanda wasn't intimidated. She had seen enough to know what needed to be done. It was time to confront the truth, and if they wanted a fight, she'd give them one. She straightened her back and walked to the head of the room, standing tall and unwavering. I'm sure you all know by now that this company has a long history of discrimination. Systemic bias has been the driving force behind its success for years. But that ends today. The room stirred. The board members exchanged uneasy glances. Harper's gaze darkened, his fingers tapping nervously against the table. He knew she was right. They knew she was right. Victor may be the new CEO, but I will not sit back and watch as this company continues to perpetuate harmful stereotypes and uphold toxic structures. Amanda's voice grew stronger, her words cutting through the air like a blade. If you think this vote is about Victor, you're wrong. It's about all of you. It's about how deep this prejudice runs in every corner of this company, and how it's time to dismantle it starting now. The chairman, visibly shaken by her boldness, tried to regain control. You don't understand, Amanda. This is bigger than you. Bigger than any of us. There's a legacy here. A history that cannot be erased overnight. Then it's time to make a new history. Amanda shot back. And I'm not going to stop until every last one of you sees that. The room went silent. The board members were stunned into inaction for a moment. But Harper wasn't going to sit idly by. He was too entrenched in the old ways. This is a dangerous game you're playing, Harper said with a sneer, his voice low. If you push this any further, you'll regret it. Amanda stood her ground. I'm not afraid of you, Harper. And I'm not afraid of any of you. The time for protecting your outdated, harmful systems is over. She turned and began to walk toward the exit, leaving the board members to stew in their disbelief. She knew the battle was just beginning, but she had made her point. The question now was, would they listen? Over the next few days, Amanda took a calculated approach. She knew that this fight wasn't just about one confrontation in the boardroom, it was about the long game. She had to build allies, gather support, and continue exposing the cracks in the company's foundation. Beth, the HR staff member who had been secretly supporting her, reached out once again. Amanda, I've been doing some digging. You won't believe what I've uncovered. Amanda leaned forward, intrigued. What is it? The company's diversity program is a facade. It's designed to look good on paper, but it does nothing to change the real power dynamics. The board members who are opposing Victor, they've been in charge for decades, and they've made sure that only certain people ever get to rise to the top. Amanda's stomach tightened. So this isn't just about the recent changes? This is a deliberate effort to keep people like me out. Beth nodded grimly. Exactly. But you're not alone in this. There are others who want change, people who've been silenced for too long. If we work together, we can make this happen. Amanda felt a spark of hope. She had been fighting alone for so long, but now she was building a network, a movement. It wasn't just about fighting her own battle. It was about dismantling a system that had oppressed so many. The following week, Amanda faced an unexpected challenge. Harper had taken to the company's internal communication channels, attempting to discredit her efforts. He painted her as a troublemaker, a woman who was disrupting the company's natural flow and undermining the integrity of Victor's leadership. Amanda was furious, but she knew she couldn't fight misinformation with anger alone. She needed a strategy. We have to expose the truth, Beth told her. We can't let them control the narrative anymore. It's time for transparency. Amanda and Beth began working behind the scenes, compiling data and evidence to counter Harper's lies. They interviewed former employees, gathered testimonies, and documented how the company's so-called diversity initiatives had been nothing but a cover for its continued systemic bias. With each piece of evidence, Amanda's resolve grew stronger. The truth was on her side. One afternoon, Amanda received a call from an old colleague, an investigative journalist who had once worked with her at a different company. He was interested in the story Amanda was uncovering. This could be big, he said. We need to make sure the public knows what's happening behind closed doors. This is about more than just your company. It's about corporate culture everywhere. Amanda hesitated. This was a huge step, one that could lead to media scrutiny and potentially destroy the careers of everyone involved. But she knew she couldn't back down. If she was going to expose the truth, it had to be done on her terms. Let's do it, Amanda said, her voice steady with determination. The day of the public reveal arrived. Amanda stood at the front of a crowded press conference, surrounded by reporters and cameras. Her heart raced, but she was ready. She had spent weeks preparing for this moment, gathering evidence, preparing her speech. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was about every single person who had been crushed under the weight of prejudice and discrimination. Today, I'm here to expose the truth, Amanda began, her voice calm but unwavering. For too long, this company has perpetuated a culture of systemic bias. It has been ingrained in every policy, every decision, every hire. And it ends now. The room fell silent as Amanda revealed the damning evidence. Emails, recordings, testimonies, all of it laid bare for the world to see. Harper's face turned pale as the cameras flashed. He tried to interrupt, but the damage had already been done. This is just the beginning, Amanda continued. It's not enough to expose the truth. We have to change the systems that allow this to happen. And I'll be damned if I'm going to let anyone silence me now. The media coverage exploded. Amanda's name was on the lips of every news outlet, every social media platform. People were outraged and they were demanding answers. The company's leadership was forced to confront the reality of their actions. Victor, too, found himself at the center of the storm. But for once, Amanda wasn't alone. The truth was her ally, and the world was listening. Harper was suspended, and the board members who had tried to sabotage Victor's leadership were removed. It wasn't the easy win Amanda had imagined, but it was a win nonetheless. Months later, Amanda stood in front of the company's headquarters, now a symbol of change and progress. The building had undergone a transformation not just in its structure, but in its culture. She had fought for it, and together with her allies, she had won. The company now operated with transparency, inclusivity, and fairness. The system of discrimination that had once defined it was gone, replaced by a commitment to equal opportunity for everyone. Amanda looked at the rising sun, a new day dawning. She had broken free from the chains of prejudice, and in doing so had changed an entire institution. But as she stood there, one thought lingered in her mind. This wasn't just about one company. This was the beginning of something bigger. The fight for justice and equality wasn't over, it was just getting started. The journey for justice is never easy, but it's always worth it. If you've been inspired by Amanda's story, join the fight. Stand up, speak out, and never let prejudice win. Subscribe for more impactful stories like this, and together, let's continue to change the world.